The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of 8-Bit Suplex. This is Josh McLaughlin, and I'm going to tag in here Sandy Cavaria. Sandy, how are you?
Here's the hot tag. Hey guys, hey Josh, how are you?
I'm good, and we're not going to call our show anything related to the hot tag because we don't need to get heat with Izzy and her parents because they will come after you on Twitter. So we're going to just...
Wait, what? What do they do?
No. Well, you said the hot tag, like as if we were trying to steal that show name. We don't want to steal that show name. We'll just put it out there. Izzy and her parents, we don't need heat. Sandy, we don't need heat. We're just getting the show off the road here. We don't need any misconstrued heat with any super fans or other superstars that are training. You might find yourself in the ring with Izzy someday. You don't need any preheat. You know what I'm saying?
You are absolutely right. Let's move on. Just from the start, man.
Yeah. Well, before we get really started here, now that we've dodged all the lawyers and Izzy's parents, I kind of let you know that support for the 8-Bit Suplex is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. They obsess over their technology developments to provide you the best tools for your grooming experience. And moving straight into the start of Impact here, Sandy, we see a man that looks like he might use the Manscaped Lawnmower 3.0 on his bald head, and that's Eric Young. He starts to show off with a promo.
He does. That's our new world champion. I can't believe it. EY, man. I looked at him and I was like, I feel terrible for saying this. We're the positivity freaking podcast out there, but he looks rough.
Yeah, we come to expect a look out of our world champions, haven't we, Sandy?
Yeah.
And Eric Young.
I think we have. We've been conditioned.
We had over a decade of watching John Cena be a world champion. We've seen The Rock be a world champion. We've seen even Chris Jericho be world champion. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
One of these guys does not look like the other, and that's Eric Young. But he definitely has his own style, and unapologetically so. He starts to cut an interesting promo. It doesn't really seem like it's going anywhere. And of course, we get Alicia Edwards coming in to kind of do a counter promo here. And for the listeners that aren't familiar, Alicia is the wife of Eddie Edwards. And she comes out and cuts a pretty passionate promo here, talking about how Eric Young is trying to ruin not only Eddie's career, but also their life at home. Talks about how he can't hold his kids. Things like that. So, but I thought Alicia really, 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 really laid it on here.
Yeah, you can kind of tell. She got really into it. She's really passionate, especially when she started talking about Eddie Edwards not even being able to hold his own daughter or even take her on a walk. But she was also kind of in there, not just kind of making it about Eddie Edwards and Eric Young, but she said, hey, she's also not afraid of him. She's made it through some even bigger hurdles, even scarier tactics from other opponents and other rivalries. And she says they're going to come back with a vengeance. But my favorite was when Eric Young just looks at her dead in the face, gets down to her at eye level, and just says, I don't care. Big pop. I laughed so hard. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely.
And of course, he comes back with a nice little slap. And
it was a slap heard around the world. I mean, that was definitely a pretty good shoot slap there from Alicia to Eric Young. Which of course prompts Eric Young to go to give Alicia the pile driver. And then an unlikely save here. I was kind of caught off guard here. But the only Thomas Dreamer comes out from the back with his kendo stick to come up with the save.
He did, and I also this kind of takes you into what we're gonna see later on. So Tommy Dreamer gets in there. He goes in for the save with a kendo stick and challenges Mr. Eric Young, our new champion, to any type of match. He says, EY, you pick the match. I don't even care about the title. I want to defend my friend's honor. These people, Eddie Edwards and Alicia, are like family to me. This is personal, and I want my hands on you. But he says, hey, you pick the stipulation. It doesn't matter. I'm here for it. And Eric Young, as we find out later, accepts, and we'll get to that. But yes, Tommy Dreamer in a main event match in 2020. What a wild turn of events.
When this year started and everything was getting real hot in the wrestling industry, AEW's taken off, Impact's building the best knockouts, women's division. AEW's got the tags on lock. NXT's, running Adam Cole's got the longest streak going. All these top headlines in wrestling, and we get to September, and Tommy Dreamer is main eventing Impact. Like you said, we'll get to that a little bit later, but I got to tell you, I thought this was a pretty killer promo that Tommy Dreamer cut.
He nailed it.
I mean, as if we should have any doubt at this point that Tommy Dreamer can cut a promo, right? I mean, the man's been wrestling longer than we've been alive, Sandy. It's just the fact that he's able to even, put together two sentences with the kind of shit that he's put himself through, is kind of remarkable.
How's his brain functioning?
To be out of bed at all, I mean, quite frankly, he does a pretty good job here setting up the match, getting the energy going for the show. I thought it gave you something to look forward to later down the line. I didn't expect it at the time to be the main event match. But hey, I guess that match is more important than the tag team championship match or the number one contenders match for the X Division championship. But we'll get into those a little bit later. Before we do, we got a couple of backstage segments here. We got an interesting segment where we see Moose. Of course, last week we saw him find the kind of Charlie from It's Always Sunny string board where he connects the dots and figures out that he needs to fly out to what looked like New York circled on the map there. We see him get onto a Southwest Airlines flight, which I thought was funny. Way to go, Impact. Really shell out for the premier airline carrier there. No, nothing against Southwest. I fly Southwest, but that's because I have a budget, Sandy. I would assume that a big wrestling promotion could probably put their talents for, especially when they're shooting an angle, I'm a little bit better than Southwest. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Moose is on a budget.
Moose, hey, listen, Moose has got to kick some ass. He doesn't need to spend money to do so, I suppose. But yeah, I thought it was just kind of a silly little thing showing where he's going there. Nothing really else to hit on. But we get to see right from that the newly engaged Johnny Bravo and Rosemary kind of starting to plan wedding stuff. And of course, Taya inserts herself as the wedding planner and instantly starts making it all about her. I thought it was kind of some funny stuff here. What'd you think?
I thought it was great. I guess I'm not too familiar with Rosemary's character, and of course, it's very easy to understand what she is. She's a demon. She does demon things, and she's talking about, what was it? Resurrect, like the hassle it is to resurrect someone that she wants to officiate the wedding. Right. And I thought that was, oh my God. But then, she snaps her finger, she disappears. Taya takes over. And Taya's hilarious. I think this is the part that I've been enjoying the most about Impact, is that they're not taking themselves seriously. This is a point that we touch at every single episode. Like, it's goofy, it's silly, but it's pro wrestling, which is what I think in my heart it's what it's supposed to be. It's subjective, of course, to everyone. Everyone has a different taste, but they're not doing this being like, oh, this is going to be a real wedding. Like, no, they're being goofy about it, which is how I think it should be, and I think it works.
Right. And I think, to draw a comparison, every wrestling promotion has some sort of comedy wrestling angle to it, right? Some are more of a, the promotion itself is kind of more comedy leaning, right? Like a Gato Move. I don't know if you've watched any of that. They do a lot of comedy stuff. They have a wrestler named Lulu Pencil, and she's the wrestling prodigy but she's actually awful, right? So there's kind of the more comedy stuff going on there. Um, and then you have, like people like Toriano that are doing comedy mixed in with, we a couple weeks ago we saw Yano beat Okada in a four-man match, right? That's just,
Don't get me started.
comedy works all over the world. That's kind of the point I'm getting to. So this is not over the top slapstick like telling jokes comedy, like Yano, pulling the turnbuckle off and then pretending like he's not going to hit anybody with it and then hit somebody with it, right? It's a little bit more like, okay, listen, we don't have a major serious storyline going here. We're doing a marriage angle. Let's just not take ourselves seriously. And marriage angles in American professional wrestling, I mean, always, right? There's always some wedding angle going on, and I don't know why we have this in professional wrestling. I think the promoters think it has like it'll draw in like female viewership. But I don't know, Sandy. Does
But
do wedding angles do anything for you?
no, never have, never will. Oh my gosh, I don't know. They keep trying, but I guess it could kind of attract maybe like a mom, maybe not someone like my age, maybe a little bit older. They
Sure.
like the whole drama, soap opera, like reality TV show, which actually I'm a big fan of trash reality TV, but
I was
let's
gonna
not
say
get
if you
into
watch if fair to say maybe if you watch Bravo TV, then you'll enjoy watching wrestling angles that involve you know uh the quote unquote cuck angle or um the wedding angles. I don't know. Maybe that's tapping into that. I don't know. I do know that
maybe. I don't
my
know how successful it is.
I'm gonna go on the not very. Um,
Yeah,
but
I think that's a safe bet.
if this isn't the only marriage angle that we saw on TV this week, we're not an AEW show, but there was, of course, the whole Kip Sabian, who's his
Oh
best
yeah.
man angle, and it winds up being the best man, not a best man, the best man, Miro, who we know as Rusev, which was pretty funny. I love Rusev. Rusev Day was my jam. I was one of the ones that would say it sitting in my living room at home. So we wish Miro the
Yeah,
best, but we got to get back to talking about Impact because that's
that's
what
the
we do. And we got a pretty good match here to talk about up next, which was Chris Bay versus TJP, which we are told is for the number one contendership for the X Division Championship. I thought this was pretty good here. Sandy, why don't you walk us through here and kind of give your thoughts on the match?
Sure. So we start out right away with a fast and explosive start to this match. Holy cow. I think TJP runs into the ring while his music's still going, while he's trying to do his entrance, and Chris Bay immediately goes in for the attack before TJP even gets on his feet. Um, of course, my champ, Rohit Raju, comes out in his bomb ass gold jacket to watch the match in person. I love that man. I cannot wait to see more of him. I was completely during that championship match that we watched in the previous episodes. I'm a huge fan, love him.
Yeah,
But he was there. Like, he's a very explosive, very we I guess we've kind of gotten to know how Chris Bay and TJP work. They're very fast paced, very innovative. They're and this is exactly how that match went. It was a lot of back and forth. Like, it was like, I think they mentioned this on commentary. It was like a chess match.
yeah,
You couldn't. You think for a second one had the upper hand, but then the other one would come back and say, "Nope, now I have the upper hand." So it was a battle between the two. Um, I enjoyed it. I actually, I will have to be a little bit of a negative Nancy here. I feel like they did it too much physically and just not enough storytelling. It was just
right.
move after move after move after move, and it wasn't necessarily anything crazy high flying, but it was very innovative stuff, very impressive stuff. But I just felt like the match lacked like a story behind it.
Yeah, it didn't feel, from my perspective watching it, I didn't feel the sense of urgency that it was for a number one contendership. It did
And that,
feel
yeah,
it did feel like it was a lot of let's get to the next how technical we are at wrestling move. And both of these guys are really good at it, and I understand the desire to showcase that. But yet, the match was good. I don't think it was a bad match, but you're right. It didn't draw you in. It was just a wrestling
yeah,
match. It didn't feel like it had stakes. It didn't feel like either guy really tried that hard. And I think that's something that, you can kind of feel with TJP sometimes. He kind of feels like he's mailing it in if he's always not, because he's not emoting as much as somebody else would. Um, but I like the match. Of course, we get the quick kind of surprise counter pin to get TJP the win, and we'll see what happens next. Whatever Raju decides if he's going to give TJP the title shot or not. Commentary seemed to suggest that he would not give the title shot immediately, or maybe not at all. So we'll have to keep an eye on that.
I hope not. I hope he makes him go through all the hoops until TJP finally loses his mind, and hopefully we'll get some emotion out of the man for this X Division title down the road. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and it's interesting too that Madison Rayne called out too that TJP said that he was dedicated to doing his tag stuff with Fallah Bahh. Of course, since we've started this podcast, you and I have not seen TJP tag with Fallah Bahh. So they pointed that out, that TJP seems to be very much about himself and getting that X Division championship. So we'll see if Fallah Bahh plays a part later on in this. So we'll have to kind of take a look here.
That's a good call out.
So let's see here. We have a locker room talk segment. Of course, Johnny Swinger is back to co-host with Madison Rayne. And they have their special guests, Kylie Rae and Susie, back from Wrestle House. As we see with locker room talk week after week, there's really not a lot of substance, but more so to just tease the match that's happening next week. And this will be a pretty good one, I think, because we see Deonna Purrazzo, our Knockouts champion, and her new lackey, for lack of a better term, Kimberly, come in. Cut kind of a pretty soft promo on Kylie and Susie, Kylie and Susie doing the whole like Kylie obviously is a genuinely like the nice character, always smiley, bubbly, but Susie trying to be her friend and trying to be over the top nice when we know what Susie's capable of. It's kind of a nice little, it's a kind of a funny little thing, but I'm more interested in the match than I am in the story here. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm excited to see how these girls go. I feel like I haven't seen, I guess, Susie, as she's called now, wrestle in quite a bit, except for that one little match that we saw at Wrestle House. So
Right.
I'm excited to see her in there again. I'm excited to, like you guys have heard before, we love Kimberly. I personally love Kimberly. Deonna, you cannot not enjoy her wrestling. And of course, Kylie Rae is our number one. Love her.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Josh, what is Madison Rayne's kind of character when it comes to her role as an interviewer at Wrestle Talk? Because when she's on commentary, she doesn't really give off that, whether she's like a heel commentator on there, kind of giving that kind of side of things.
Yeah.
But she was kind of mean to Kylie Rae and kind of being heelish towards them, and I was like, whoa, what is happening here? Kind of, she just did a 180 on us from commentary to Wrestle Talk.
That's a good call out. I don't know that Madison Rayne is even really doing a character or doing character work, I should say, that much. It almost feels like she's kind of almost doing it's almost like a Mean Girls kind of thing when she does locker room talk, right? Where it's kind of like, let's dish on this or let's dish on that. Tell me about this part or tell me about this. And she gets the people that are in locker room talk in trouble and into matches, right? Like we saw with the Rascals and having to wrestle Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. It's kind of a weird thing because she goes back on commentary and then she's kind of all over the place. I don't think Impact is looking for a heel commentator as much as they just want someone to just counter what Josh is saying. And obviously, I mean, who better to counter what you're saying than your wife? But it'll be interesting to see if they kind of push her one way or the other, because she does occasionally wrestle still, and she does get mixed up that way. She's still, I believe, technically in the Knockouts division, despite being a commentator. So I mean, we'll see what happens, right? I mean, that's probably the most interesting thing about Locker Room Talk, is that we don't know where it's going to lead to, and not obviously the segment itself. Moving on from Locker Room Talk, we get a little backstage here with Tasha Steelz and Kiera Hogan, who have decided that they want to be the best groomsmen for Johnny Bravo in the wedding. It's kind of funny stuff, nothing too serious here. I thought it was kind of interesting they're trying to convince Bravo to not listen to Taya about stuff. Don't know. It's not about her. You don't need to do this. Like, do you need permission from her to breathe? Like, just doing stuff like that. And it felt very like middle schoolers, right? You always had the buddy that in middle school that had the girlfriend, and he just basically did whatever he said or whatever she said, and and you would be like, "Come on, man, let's go play football." And you'd be like, "I can't because Stacy says I have to go and do this." Like, dude, we're like 13. Let's go play football. Let's go play basketball. No, I can't. So that kind of that's the vibe I got off of this. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. It's lighthearted stuff. And we'll get to a segment later on, of course, with Taya coming out. For whatever reason, we're seeing we get Tasha Steelz against Taya in this episode of Impact, and we'll get Kiera Hogan against Taya next week's Impact. Really just feels like a good way to showcase the Knockouts division. Two of the younger ones, especially in Tasha Steelz, who's pretty new. But then we'll get to the match later. But what did you think about the whole? And we'll just touch on the later segment now, kind of wrapping it all together of having them get into this little mini feud with Taya here.
I love it because it just felt very natural. You're backstage to kind of make it seem like it's a locker room, which is kind of what it is. You have all the wrestlers backstage talking to each other, doing different things, and I mean, I feel like that's exactly how it would happen in real life. Hey, let me get into your wedding, that kind of goofy stuff, and then
Sure.
the person who's planning the wedding's like, no, I'm making all the decisions. Well, now they're butting heads, and what's the best way for wrestlers to kind of deal with anything? They wrestle. So I think it was great. It's a matter of like, okay, hey, we have this agreement. Let's quit the shit, and let's just stop talking, and let's just get in the ring and fight it out. And that's it. That's how we squash it. But of course, we're going to continue to next week because there's two of them. Of course, I really like Steelz. She, like you mentioned, she's very new, but she's very athletic. The size, I guess we'll get into the match later, but oh man, we'll get to see that size difference. It was tremendous. It didn't really seem like it at first, but when they were actually in the ring, I was like, oh my God.
Right, yeah, we will get into that. That is something to definitely highlight, especially too considering that Taya, despite being way bigger, is still very athletic herself. But yeah, well, that's a little bit later on in the show. What we get next is Brian Myers, the most professional wrestler, comes out and cuts a promo about how he doesn't like that Willie Mack didn't shake his hand because he wasn't being very professional. And then Willie Mack comes out in full gear and takes away Sandy here.
So exactly, he just wants Brian Myers just out here being a little bit of a snob. He calls himself the most professional, but he won by cheating last time. Anyways, he expects a handshake. He literally gets out there in his little tennis shoes, his t-shirt, his joggers, and says, hey, Willie Mack, get out here and shake my hand right now. First of all, how are you going to tell a grown man to come shake your hand? Anyways,
Right,
like you mentioned, Willie Mack comes out. He is in full gear. He is as calm as can be and just lets Brian Myers know, hey, I get a rematch approved and it's happening right now. And by the way, I'm not shaking your hand. And the way he said it to me was so like the confidence in this man. Like he was just like just taking no BS from Brian Myers at this point. And we have a match, and it was literally happening right there. Brian Myers, of course, was kind of like, no, this can't happen. I'm not ready. But like commentary pointed out, if you're the most professional wrestler, you always have to be prepared.
Yep, and Willie even said like, "Hey, why don't you have your ring gear? You're supposed to be a professional, right?" So, it was a kind of a rehashing of the first match that they had, except Brian Myers, of course, is in street clothes. We see that play in here towards the end. Willie Mack goes to pull his shirt over his head, and he tosses the shirt and kind of catches the referee. Referee turns over to go chase the shirt for some reason. And of course, Brian Myers gets the low blow and then puts in this finishing DDT, and Willie Mack loses to Brian Myers again by cheating.
Again, but can I call out that most beautiful DDT? Honestly, I could watch a video of that DDT just play in repeat for hours. It is so beautiful.
No,
One
it's
can only aspire to have a DDT that looks as great as that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that in the 5 years or so that he spent in WWE that I ever saw his finishing move because he
I
lost
don't think so.
214
Yeah.
matches in a row or whatever it was. Um,
Ridiculous number.
but I mean, it's a pretty solid DDT there.
It's
Um,
beautiful. And you know what? The
I liked
match
it.
to me was a really good match. I thought, it was very simply put together where you had the story, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a hell of a lot more than a lot of what we saw in the show, especially Chris Bay and TJP. Like this one, you had your story. They were able
Yeah,
to do impressive stunts like Willie Mack's freaking beautiful leg drop
he
and
does have a
his,
beautiful leg drop.
oh
That's
my
true.
God, his skip up and his moonsault. I'll never not pop for that. You have those impressive explosive moves, but you also have the storyline, and they're able to slow down where they need to slow down. And that to me is so important when it comes to having a successful match. And this match did it for me. I really enjoyed it. Like you mentioned, it was a rehash of what happened last week. But hey, we have the. Do you think this feud will continue even with Brian Myers here getting a second win over Willie Mack?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's probably going to lead to a no DQ or something like that of that form, just because he's cheating already. So Willie Mack's going to say, okay, guess what? I'm going to beat the bricks off of you too, and we're not going to have any rules keeping me in place. That's where I think it's going.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised by it. I wouldn't be upset by it.
me too.
So moving right along here. That's what we love about Impact is that the show does keep moving at a pretty good clip. Um, Jordan Grace backstage getting interviewed. She decides that she's not going to talk about what happened with Deonna Purrazzo, but she's pissed off about Tennille Dashwood showing up after months away and just assuming that she's going to be in the title picture. So Jordan chases down Tennille's um, backstage dressing room, and we get to meet Tennille's PP, which we all collectively learned stood for personal photographer. Which when he said PP, I was like, okay, where are we going with this? And then I remembered it's not 1999 anymore, so we're going to be pretty safe. We're just going to pretend it's not
Thankfully.
safe. But yeah, goofy little segment to tease that next week we'll see Tennille Dashwood on Impact. No promise of a match, no promise of anything. She's just going to be on the show next week because apparently
Dude, Josh, this killed me. I laughed so freaking hard because again, it's that like goofiness, but it was really cleverly done because okay, he said, what did he say? He said that Tennille is just too important to be here right now, and then Jordan was like, okay, do you know when we can expect her to return back to work? And then it cuts to the video package of her just getting photographed and posing, and it's like Tennille Dashwood will be here. I don't know, 1 week or 2 weeks, whatever it said. And
yeah,
then it cuts back. I laughed so hard. I don't know why this made
right.
me laugh so hard.
Well, it's
It was
funny too
clever. It
because
was so clever.
they're acting like they're also watching that promo happen, despite the fact that
Yeah.
there's no screens around, right? We've seen that there's TV screens for wrestlers to watch the match going on backstage. We know that shot, but there's nothing back there. This is literally just the dressing room. She's standing at the door of a dressing room, and like she's like looking off camera when it comes back, and she's like, really, like
I
it
love
was.
that. Oh
It
my
was
gosh,
silly.
I
It was
laughed so
goofy.
hard.
Yeah. No, I laughed too. I thought it was pretty funny. But yeah, so Tennille Dashwood will be back. And I'm sure we'll have more to talk about with her next week. Um, then we got what I thought was going to main event the show, which probably
Me
should have
too.
main evented the show, which is the Motor City Machine Guns versus Des and Wentz, the Rascals. And this was, in my opinion, the match of the night. I really enjoyed this one. Um, it's just super action filled from the start. You could feel the desperation from the Rascals, the desire to take the champions out. Even though these are both face tag teams, as we learned after the match, um, which we kind of thought they're going in, but it really solidified that they're both face tag teams. Um, and I really really enjoyed this match. It was better than a tag match that I watched in person over the weekend, Sandy. I thought. Um, for the record,
Mm.
if you can catch on with what I'm saying there. You pick up on the first letter of each of those words, looking at you guys. But I thought this match was really good. I don't have anything that I thought went wrong with it. I thought it was awesome.
Because I was, like I mentioned last time, I am so, like, I will keep saying this until it is not true any longer. I am so impressed by Des. This
Yeah,
kid is a freaking star. He gets in there, every move that he hits, it's with a purpose, it's with emotion, and he is a great looking kid. He's young, I'm assuming. I'm not sure. I have no idea how old he is. But oh my gosh, I feel like it's just a total star. If I were an agent or a producer or anyone, a talent scout for WWE or AEW, I would be on the lookout for Dez, and I would be counting down the days until his contract with Impact expires. This kid, I know he's going to have a bright future. And I don't think I've ever said that in my life because, I'm just a fan. But to
sure.
me, just watching him, man, this kid has all the potential in the world. He looks great out there. But like you mentioned, it was a fantastic match. Definitely should have main evented the show. This match didn't lack from not having an audience. Because we've talked about it. We've talked about how some matches are actually hurt by not having an audience, or there's some spots in the match where really the energy of the audience will really escalate and elevate that match to a whole nother level. This match didn't even need that. They did it all on their own. It was so well put together. And even actually, I don't know if you caught this, but Logan actually did because we were watching it together.
Hmm.
It seemed right from where the Motor City Machine Guns were able to kind of isolate Wentz and go for the legs right in the beginning of the match. It looks like they had to call an audible. I'm sorry. And they are such pros. You can tell by the way they work together that they are just so in sync. Whether, something changes in the match that didn't go according to plan and they have to call an audible, you would have never noticed because it was just so smooth.
Yeah.
Man, this match, it's one for the books. My only call out here that I kind of want to put like a little negative on was the ref really had no control over the match.
Yeah,
It was
he was a
minutes.
bystander.
Oh my God, minutes and minutes went by when the Motor City Machine Guns were just on Wentz and just 2-on-1 for the longest time while Dez is in the corner just waiting like an idiot. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, it was the longest 5 count of all time,
Oh
for
my
sure.
God.
Because yeah,
Yeah.
that ref was kind of a bystander. But yeah, other than that, what the wrestlers did in the ring was fantastic. And you mentioned the leg work. There was one at one point where Shelley had set up for um, the drop kick to a seated Wentz, and instead of doing the drop kick, he turned it into kind of like a twisting leg drop onto the knee again. And I was like, huh, I don't know that I've seen that. And if I have it, it's been a while. Listen, I could hit that guy in the head, but his leg is, to borrow from WWE 2K video games, it's in the red. You just got to keep working that body part that's in the red, right? So, yeah, I thought it was a really smartly booked match. I thought it worked really well, ref bystander aside. Um,
He was
and
just a
then,
fan
right,
watching from
I
really, really
listen.
close.
I probably would do the same thing if I were in his shoes. Um, but it was a great match. Then, of course, after post match, the North makes a nice run in. Um,
Oh,
Before we move on, I'm just going to point out that Ethan had the ugliest mustard colored shorts
oh,
I've ever seen in
stop
my
that.
life. No,
Get out of
those
here.
shorts were terrible,
He
awful.
looked amazing. He pulled them off. He looked like a freaking movie
I
star.
don't know about that.
I want
I don't
those
know about
shorts.
that. Well, they would look more appropriate on you than they did on him. Um,
He's just trying to show off his hot new body, okay?
you
And
get
he
it.
has to
Hey,
wear some
listen,
short shorts.
you got some quads. You got to show them off, I guess. Uh,
Hmm.
of course, after they rush in, then Ace and Madman rush in, and then there's a period where they look like they're gonna fight, and then Ace Austin says, "Hey, there's two of them. We can each take one." So the two teams split up, and they start beating the piss out of Motor City Machine Guns, and then apparently Babyface tag team, the Good Brothers, come in.
I was shocked as well. I'm like, wait, what?
Um, and they clean house and, with the Rascals getting back into the mix. Kind of a mess here at the end. Not really sure why this kind of happened this way, but the Good Brothers are the only tag team of the five tag teams involved in this scrum that are not booked for the match next week that they booked. If I read the card correctly, it looks like it is going to be next week the North and Ace Austin and Madman Fulton versus the Rascals and Motor City Machine Guns. So that'll be an interesting 8-man tag match for next week. The Good Brothers, I guess they're just good brothering, you know. I mean, they help out. They help out the guys, like, you know, hey man, tell us thanks. And they, it was kind of a weird. I don't know. They didn't really end very smoothly.
No, I
Um,
didn't.
but no, that 8-man tag match sounds pretty good, Sandy. What do you think?
I'm excited for it. I have to tell you something that Logan said while we were watching.
Sure.
So he said that Fulton looks like a pre-evolution of Archer, like a Pokemon. Like
Sure.
you have Fulton and then he evolves into Archer. Agree or disagree?
Hard to say. Hard to say. I'd like to see them standing next to, like, shoulder to shoulder, and actually, I'd like to see that match. Because
Oh yeah.
I just love two big guys just smacking each other around.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I could see it. I mean, Fulton has more hair, so maybe he's the evolved state. Maybe not. I don't know. But
I don't know.
either
We've been
either.
watching a lot of Pokemon.
Hey, listen. So have I. You know, my 4-year-old Nolan has gotten really into Pokemon lately.
Oh
And
yeah.
he does do a Pikachu impersonation he's quite proud of.
Oh.
So at some point we'll get him on the pod to do his Pikachu impersonation. Perhaps whenever we decide that we're going to tackle Pokemon in an episode, Sandy, which we are putting off, of course, because that is such a huge topic.
Massive. Oh my god.
You know, maybe if Impact shuts down for a week, we just do a whole episode on Pokemon. I don't think that's going to happen. Um, you know, such is the life of a half wrestling, half video games podcast. Um, but I know this next thing that they tease, Sandy. I know you are over the moon excited
Get out of
for
here.
the whole effing talk show, which is
Oh,
probably the worst idea for a segment I've ever heard in my entire life. Because listen, I can deal with Rob Van Dam matches. I can deal with the fact that Katie Forbes is going to be standing ringside twerking the whole time. I can deal with the fact that maybe she'll do a hip attack, in quotes hip. But why are we giving them a talk show segment?
I we try to keep it positive here, and I've tried very hard with Katie Forbes and RVD, but I was just like, why? No, unless it's just immediately shut down by Sammy Callahan, and that's it. But you cannot really have Wrestle Talk and this new talk segment plus
Yeah,
all the backstage stuff. There's no way.
no, I mean, you have locker room talk, you have this, you have the backstage interviews. Thank God that Wrestle House ended. Not thank God that Wrestle House ended, but thank God that it ended so that they're not overdoing all these extra segments. Um,
It would just be all talking the entire
right, 2 hours,
2 hours.
right? And you know, when you watch this on Impact Plus, it's 85 minutes with no commercials, right? I mean, you don't got a whole lot of time here, and we're, you know, like you said, we try to keep it positive, um, but there's no silver lining to that. There really
Not at
isn't.
all.
And of course, you know, they end their announcement by making out, which brings us into a
Oh,
very strange Sammy Callahan vignette. He says he's not going to hack the talk show,
he's
despite
gonna.
this
He better. Please,
really,
Sammy.
really weird tangent about how when somebody's got his number, he'll admit it. And apparently, Katie Forbes has his number. And he keeps on singing this parody, demented version of 8675309, which is like, you know, if you're trying to reach out to younger viewers, Jenny, I got your number is not the way to do it, and especially not with a weird, hacky, uh, uh, hacker Katie Forbes, Rob Van Dam segment. This is not attracting people to the product.
No, not at all. But you
So,
know what? Here's a positive. Here, we'll turn this back to to the good graces
I'm
and to the
interested in
positive.
I'm interested in how you're going to do this.
Sammy Callahan is a great promo.
He does sell it.
He
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 does.
can cut that on the mic. He does it so well.
He does. He does. No, like the things, and we've had some other shows on our network talk about this with like someone like an MJF, right? MJF comes out, he cuts these incredible promos, he's delivering it perfect, and then like when you peel back the layers and like look at the words that he's saying, they don't really make a whole lot of sense, right? But because MJF says them so well, you buy into it, and you're like, wow,
Mm.
maybe Moxley is a dictator, and it doesn't make any sense at all, right? Um,
Mm.
I'm not saying Sami Callihan is on the MJF promo level. Nobody come and start adding us about that. But I will agree with you that Sami Callihan, when does cut a promo, he does the words he says may be a little strange. He may sing very strange parodies of "Jenny, I Got Your Number," um, but I mean, he does cut them well, and he's in the character. So I suppose,
Absolutely.
if that's what you're looking for, then by all means, go right ahead. But it was a longer vignette than I expected.
Oh yeah.
Especially on and I swear he's saying uh Jenny, I got your number like 38 times in like 2.5 minutes. It was kind of, I mean, I'm picking on that because I hate that song because it's a terrible, stupid song, and I didn't need to hear it again this week, especially sung by Sammy Callahan. But
That's
that's too
so
much of
funny
a
because
that's
I didn't really notice it that much until you just said it.
well, because
But
he
I guess
sings it
because
he
if
sings
you
it
hate the song.
he sings it horribly, and it's like one of those buttons in my head that goes, oh my God, that song, why? So,
Poor Josh.
but I know. You know what? I'm gonna recoup here. Why don't you take us through the next match?
All right, so we finally get into some knockouts action with Tasha Steelz, with Hogan by her side and Taya. So I didn't really write down too much about it because I was just my eyes were glued to Taya. Like we mentioned earlier, the size difference here, when you have Tasha Steelz next to Hogan or any of the other knockouts, you don't really, okay, she's a little bit smaller, but no big deal. Man, she was completely overshadowed by Taya, it seems. And, Tasha didn't get a lot of offense in this match. This is pretty much all Taya. All Taya pretty much saying, hey, I'm the greatest knockout of all time. Who the hell are you? Don't talk back to me. This is feel my presence and feel and understand why I am the top knockouts in this company. And that's exactly what she did. Man, she looks great out there and just kind of not manhandled, but she did. She just did everything so clean against Tasha Steelz. Tasha Steelz did kind of try to get in there a little bit, but just was immediately shut down by Taya. But it looks great. What did you think of this match?
Yeah, I thought it was really funny. I'll touch on the size difference in a second here because I did some research. But Bravo ringside, instead of managing Taya, is making phone calls, doing his wedding planning,
That's
um,
right.
which is kind of just goofball shit that it's professional wrestling not taking itself too seriously, and I thought it was pretty funny. Um, but yeah, I mean Tasha Steelz, the little offense she did get in looked pretty good. Um, Now, this is according to Wikipedia / wrestling fandom, because there's not an officially listed height that I could find for Tasha Steelz for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I see Taya listed as 5'8" and
Mm-hmm.
Tasha Steelz listed as 5'4". That to me
There's no way.
feels like a complete farce. Because there's
No
no
way.
way in God's green earth is Tasha Steelz 5'4".
No, I'm 5'4". There's no way.
There's no way. She is shorter than you, I'm sure. Um,
Yeah.
and and Taya feels taller than 5'8". Now it could be just because she was standing next to Tasha Steelz. But yeah, the size difference is huge, and that was none more evident than when Taya, of course, goes for the road to Valhalla, which I wrote in all caps looked brutal.
Oh my
I
gosh.
mean,
Yeah.
she flattened her. I mean, I've seen Taya do that move a lot, and I don't think I've ever seen it look that good. because
Because
I
Tasha's
think,
also so light. My
right,
God, it's like a
exactly.
pancake.
Right. It's like, the best, suplexes I ever give are to my children because they weigh like 20 pounds, right? So, I can keep it clean, keep it safe, do a little snap suplex. Nobody's hurt, right? Everyone's safe. It looks real good.
I'm
You know,
calling child services.
no, 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 only on the couch. Don't worry. Couch or bed only. Lots of cushion. But no, listen, you know how hard the ring mat is. I don't know that I would personally want to take a road to Valhalla, especially the way that Tasha Steelz did, because it looked like her face caught flush with the ring. It was pretty
Oh,
brutal.
yeah. It's not fun. I one time in training, it wasn't. Oh my God, it wasn't even anything that brutal. But we were just kind of going over drop toe holds, and I didn't put my hands up to protect my face, so I just went down as hard as I
Oh,
could to
Sandy.
the mat, and damn near broke my nose. I was all messed up. My nose was swollen. I had like dark circles under my eyes. I'm like,
Oh
oh,
boy.
gotta remember to put my hands up. So if she felt like a quarter of what I felt that day, yeah, Tasha's hurting.
Yeah, I didn't think she got her hands up there, but maybe she did. But from the video I was watching, the angle that they showed it, it didn't look like she got her hands up. Um, because obviously Taya lets go of the arm so that they can do that. She's not a monster. She's letting she's a professional. But I don't think Tasha got him up. But of course, we mentioned it, we get to see Kiera Hogan try her best against Taya. Um, I expect that it would be more of the same. Kiera Hogan is a little bit taller, a little bit bigger than Tasha Steelz, a little less green. But I think there's a pretty good chance that she meets the same fate and takes a trip to Valhalla as well.
I think so too, but we'll see.
And one little note, and I thought about this today watching Impact, because I was also, I scroll through wrestling Twitter quite a bit. There's a recent signing to All Elite Wrestling, Tay Conti, and she used to go by Taynara in NXT. I wonder, and this is just me probably overthinking it, if she switched to just Tay, because Taynara sounds more similar to Taya than Tay does. And maybe they don't want to get any cross things there. But that's probably just me overthinking it. That was just
Maybe.
that was just a maybe just sleep deprived Josh watching wrestling and scrolling through Twitter probably had a stupid thought. But I figured I'd just get it out there. Hey, maybe there is something to that. Because I don't
Don't know.
I don't know. I mean I don't know why you would switch from Taynara to Tay other than you just don't want Jim Ross to try to say Taynara. You
I
know,
actually think that's probably more of the reason than anything.
it could
Oh my
be. It
God,
could be. I can't imagine
JR.
JR trying to say, "Oh yeah, Taynara here," but
Oh
you know,
no.
but Excalibur would have no problems with it. So it's kind of a give or take there. Anyways,
Yeah.
moving on back to Josh. Um, we see. What'd you think about this Moose segment with his old ball coach?
Oh my God, Josh, you're going to have to walk me through that because I did not even remember what happened there.
Okay, well, I mean, it wasn't that great of a segment. Uh,
Sure.
it had a kind of an interesting kind of like, Moose is back talking to his old football coach. He's like, "Hey man, it's great to catch up with you. What's going on?" And Moose is like, "Hey man, have you seen a guy named EC3 walking around?" And first thing in my head is professional wrestling is the dumbest writing sometimes. Because why in the hell would someone go around saying their name was EC3? Why wouldn't he say his name was Ethan Carter?
There you
Right?
go.
Right?
That's a good
Like,
observation.
that's like, I don't know. I don't know. Like if, Hulk Hogan went to the DMV and was filling out forms as Hulk Hogan, right? Like that's not a thing. His name is Terry Bollea. He would fill out the form as Terry Bollea. Not that we would ever want to talk about Hulk Hogan. He's a racist piece of
Please
shit, and
no.
we do not yeah, sorry for dropping the S word there. But he is. He's a racist piece of shit, and he doesn't deserve to get booked ever. Um, but that was the first name that popped up that I knew the real name and the kayfabe name. That's the only reason why I went there. Do not do anything with Hulk Hogan. Um, but then the coach is like, "Oh, what do you look like?" And he's like, "Oh, he wears a black hoodie up over his head. Really narrows it down, Moose." And the coach goes, oh, does he have black hair too? And he's like, yeah. He goes, no, I haven't seen him. And it was just kind of like, it's like very like Three Stooges-esque kind of back and forth. And then like the coach then like goes into this like mind trance thing and says something about like, you've been warned. It's all about your motivation. Like it's just weird stuff. And then a bunch of guys in hoodies try to come into the coach's office, and Moose, of course, tosses them all aside and starts losing his mind. And that's the end of the thing, setting up for more. I assume Moose trying to track down EC3, as you know, he goes around telling people his name is EC3 apparently.
Could you
But
imagine?
I mean, you don't go around telling everyone that your name is Diana De Los Santos. So I mean, you know,
But
if
like even if you're using your working name, you still wouldn't EC3. Come on, you don't
right,
go
it's
say
an
your initials.
abbreviation. It's an abbreviation, right? At
Yeah.
best, right?
Oh my gosh, so
You
silly.
know,
I think EC3.
what are you gonna do? It's like, if people didn't know who LeBron James was, and you walked over, hey, have you seen this guy? He calls himself LBJ, and you'd be like, Lyndon B
What?
Johnson, like the president?
Yep.
No, LeBron James. Well, why didn't you just say that? So,
Exactly.
you
Oh
know,
my.
that was a perfect example of wrestling being wrestling, right? And another example of that, of course, is Heath and Rhino hanging out outside of the TNA Impact offices there, talking about how they're going to get more money to run more ads on Impact for Heath for Impact. That's hashtag Heath for Impact. Um, Apparently, that's the way he gets a contract, is that he just keeps on running ads. But of course, as we know, he's got kids and ads are not cheap. So Rhino's come up with a plan to get the money. And apparently, they're going to be targeting Hernandez and his wad of cash. I've seen Hernandez throw some dudes around. I don't think that that's a wise decision. What do you think, Sandy?
I'm just finally excited to find out what the deal is with Hernandez and his wad of cash. We found out last time that he's been winning at arm wrestling, but it's been such short segments, and I'm so intrigued. So hopefully this will give us some more Hernandez and what's happening there. So I'm excited.
Yeah,
See?
we'll see. Maybe that's a couple weeks down the road thing. Maybe we find Heath and Rhino disheveled at some point. Who knows? But that leads to remarkably our main event for a wrestling television show in 2020,
I
the
can't believe it.
Impact World Champion Eric Young versus Tommy Dreamer, who did not send me a
2020 is
message to
weird.
let me know that this was going to happen, and I'm pretty upset with him because he did send me a message once, and I just assumed that he would continue to send me messages about, hey man, Josh, we're pals. Make sure you're tuning into Impact this week. I'm going to be in the main event. You could have tipped me off, Tommy. You could have let me know.
Gotta get him straight.
I'm going to send him a message after we're done with this.
There you go.
But it's a quote unquote old school match. Now, Sandy, can you tell me the difference between an old school match and a no DQ match?
What about an anything goes match? What's the common denominator here, Josh?
They feel like they're all the same to me, Sandy.
That
But
is exactly it.
it
They
feels
refused to say no DQ, right? They didn't at all.
no, they didn't say no DQ. They only said anything goes,
Yep.
which
Old
is a
school rules match, anything goes.
strange, feels kind of like a nod to how long Tommy Dreamer's been doing no DQ matches. They're just going to call it an old school match.
Oh
Um,
no.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say this, and then I'll let you talk about the match some. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm gonna be a negative Nancy today. I'm sorry. We try to keep it positive here. I do. Right before Josh and I got on this call, though, he literally said a sentence that I typed out in my notes, which I thought was hilarious because it was word for word exactly what I wrote and exactly what he said, and that was, I did not expect a Dreamer match in the main event tonight, but here we are. I kid you
Yep.
guys not. Josh literally said that before we got on the call, and I just bursted out laughing because word for word, that's what I wrote down. So, yep, here we are. What did I think of the match? You know what? To me, it was just so bland. This type of match, I really don't care for the hardcore stuff, and I really think that stuff goes well when you have an audience, because it's what it is. It's you do these crazy things, these crazy stunts to pop the audience. Essentially, there's
Sure.
there's a story there, but you're not being athletic. You're just beating the hell out of each other with random things, and without an audience, those random things that they're doing in there to hurt each other to win this match, it's just not as effective.
Yeah.
This match completely suffered from that.
No, I agree with that point. You know, if you're going to hit someone unprotected on the head with a baking sheet, you want fans kind of oohing and ahhing at, right? And also, please stop doing unprotected headshots with anything. That's my PSA. But yeah, it was kind of strange too, because this is the type of match that we normally see Tommy Dreamer bleed like a pig, and he got no color at all, which I thought was kind of strange.
Oh yeah.
Maybe he earned his one tap on the shoulder from the censors because I believe he said the word shit early in his promo at the beginning of the show. So maybe he didn't want to piss off the censors too much and get color. Anytime he comes out with a bandana on his head, Sandy, I just assume that he has a razor in it. Is that wrong of me to assume that?
No, I think that's fair. That's a fair assumption.
We've watched Tommy Dreamer. The man's been wrestling. We did joke about this earlier. He did start his wrestling career in 1989. So,
oh my God.
which
When I was born.
which is the year you were born, the year before I was born, which is insane that we're now talking about him on a podcast, main eventing a show. But like I said, I was pleasantly surprised, and I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't feel like there was too much resting. I feel like they did their 10-minute match. They got in their hits. There's a couple times that Dreamer got some really good shots in. He did the one they had the trash can propped up in the turnbuckle, and he threw Eric Young off of it, and then got him with a pretty nice DDT, I thought. And so I think there were some good spots. There were some positive things, but at the end of the day,
ending was good, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, 3 cheers to Eric Young for being able to get Tommy up to do that pile driver.
Holy shit, yeah.
But I'll say this, and this is one thing I noticed, and you can correct me if I'm wrong because you train and I don't. It looked like to me that Eric Young was struggling to get him up, and then Tommy put his feet pinned straight. He straightened out his legs, pinned straight, and kind of helped Eric Young stabilize him a little bit to make that pile driver a little bit safer. I don't know. I kind of picked up on that. It looked like it to me that Tommy really helped get himself up, even more so than normal, because I know obviously there's some assisting going on both ways, right? When you do anything, any throws or pile drivers or anything like that. But it looked like at one point Tommy Dreamer's legs were kind of moving, and then he went pin straight, and then that's when Eric Young set up to drop him. I don't know, little things that remind you that he has been doing this for 30 years.
Oh yeah, a hell of a worker. That tells you it right there. He's like, okay, he knows exactly what he needs to do to assist Eric Young in the maneuver, and that's exactly what he did. He had to do what he had to do, and you can tell from his experience that he knew at that moment that is what he needed to do to help Eric Young and to make sure that it looked as great as possible. And it did. His legs were straight as an arrow, and he came down as smooth as he could, and he made Eric Young look so strong because Tommy Dreamer is a big guy.
He's a big boy. He is. He's got to be over 300 pounds, I'd imagine, or close to it. He's billed at 6'2", 265, and I don't believe it.
No, that sounds about right.
I think he's a bit heavier, if I'm being honest. But I don't know. I mean, I'm about that same height, and according to the build weight, I weigh about 30 pounds more than him. So, I don't know that I weigh 30 pounds more than Tommy Dreamer. I'd like to think we're pretty much equal as far as that goes. We are friends. He does message me on Twitter. And actually, fun story. His real last name is Laughlin, Laughlin, and my last name is Mick Laughlin, McLaughlin. L-I-N. So
Oh,
it's destiny, really. And you know
it's
what?
yep.
And strangely enough, my Twitter handle, for some reason, the MC didn't make it onto my Twitter handle. And so my Twitter handle is at Laughlin Josh _ Josh. So he probably was like, oh, look, this Mark's got the same last name as me. I'll just go ahead and message him and we'll be best friends. And you know what? Best friends is really, the theme of Impact tonight, because we got, Tommy Dreamer standing up for his best friend, Eddie Edwards. We got, the Good Brothers standing up for their friends. And at the end here, we get Rich Swann in a boot and crutches coming out to help Tommy Dreamer, as Eric Young, of course, with the pile driver, gets the win, and continues to destroy Tommy Dreamer's knee. Rich Swann comes in, and I don't know, they really put over a one-footed Rich Swann pretty strong here, Sandy.
I said yeah, they did, but man, I was just. Did you enjoy him coming out? Because I honestly believe they should have saved his return for another time. I feel like this is very anticlimactic. It was just like, oh, he's there. They could have saved it for a bigger moment.
I agree with you. I think if you wanted someone to come in and save Tommy Dreamer, you could have done that. You could have done it with another old school guy. You could have done it with a Rhino. I mean, obviously he's locked up in his other stuff. I mean, you could have done it with RVD. They've been wrestling together all the way back. An ECW callback, right? Um, yeah, I feel like if you're gonna tease that Rich Swann is coming back, which this obviously is, and we've talked about on this podcast the past few weeks, with Eric Young winning the title, who's gonna take it off of him? We both have talked about Rich Swann being a likely candidate to come back and take it off of him. And we're still, today's date is, we've switched over to September 11th. We have over a month until Bound for Glory. I feel like Rich Swann is the challenger at Bound for Glory for Eric Young's World Championship. But I don't know how you're going to build 6 weeks with a guy in a boot and crutches. I don't see it.
Guess we'll have to wait to see how they go about it. But I did enjoy how Eric Young took off to the back while he was on his way to the back, saying, "You're not supposed to be here. You shouldn't be here." So
Right.
he sold that very well, as far as the shock of like, "Oh shit, he's back. I thought I retired him." So
Yeah.
that was cool. But
Well, and two, I mean, Eric Young the whole time has been talking about how this is all part of his master plan. Everything that's happened has happened exactly how he planned it. And then Rich Swann coming back was obviously not part of his plan. So there's a little bit of a shock to the system there. So, like you said, we'll see how that goes. I was hoping to keep Rich Swann on ice for a little bit longer, but it looks like we're going to be keeping Eddie Edwards on ice for a little bit longer. Um, Enemy of the
ooh, triple
podcast.
threat.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, enemy of the podcast, Caleb Baldwin, from the Grave Consequences podcast here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Caleb did suggest to me that there could be a triple threat at Bound for Glory between those three guys. And I just like, oh, can we just not get two baby faces screwing each other over so that the heel wins? Can we please do that? Not do that trope. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see where we get there.
Yeah,
But,
we still have time.
it was a fun episode. Nothing groundbreaking, nothing super go out of your way to make sure that it's a part of your wrestling week. I thought some pretty good matches. Got to see Willie Mack. That's always a good time. And then, I actually, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised to see Tommy Dreamer go out and work a 10-minute match and main event. I mean, I don't think Tommy Dreamer main evented much in his prime, Sandy.
Right? Let alone now. It's like, what?
Yeah, no, now, but it is what it is. You got any other thoughts here before we go to break?
I want to say my MVP of this match. This is a brand new segment. We have an MVP of Impact. Drum roll, please. The Rascals versus the Motor City Machine Gun. So if you can find this match online somehow, or if you have Impact Plus and maybe you haven't seen this episode, definitely check this match out. This was so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. I'll agree with that. And I'll say we'll give the hashtag Chef's Kiss moment of the night, because we forgot to do it earlier, to the
yes.
I'm gonna give mine to the Road to Valhalla from Taya to Tasha Steeles.
Okay, fair enough. Chef's kiss. Mwah.
All right. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this week's news in gaming.
This is Jordan Grace, and you're listening to the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
All right. Welcome back. And like we've mentioned at the top of the show here, we are brought to you by Manscaped. Now, I got to tell you, Sandy, I went to the All Out pay-per-view in Jacksonville, Florida this past Saturday. And it was an unbelievably hot, humid experience.
Ugh.
Daly's place is outdoors. It's it's a covered amphitheater, but it's still outdoors. So if you're listening to this and you're not in Florida, you probably don't understand the humidity that we're dealing with, unless you're maybe in like Houston or like New Orleans, somewhere along the Gulf area. But most people don't understand the level of humidity that we deal with in Florida on a regular basis. And of course, after it rains, it's even worse. And so it was like 90 degrees. It rained before we got there. It was just miserable. But of course, before that, because I went back to school, I was at school all morning. Then I picked up some of the guys at the dojo and drove with some of our Social Suplex Network friends. And we went up to All Out, about a 3.5 hour drive. Then we stood outside in line in the heat and the humidity to get in. Socially distanced, of course, from everyone else in the line, everyone wearing masks, which is mandatory there. I thought everything, by the way, was super safe. They had tons of hand sanitizer. They really made sure that everyone followed that instruction, except for the one kid that said he was going to rush John Moxley. And he was absolutely taken down in the most nice and painful way possible. And I say kid, he was probably like in his early 20s. But, Sandy, in a normal circumstance, I would have gone to this show after this full day of being out, being active, walking in the heat on campus at school, then sitting in the car for 3.5 hours, then standing outside in the heat, then sitting in the heat for which was a very long pay-per-view, and then driving back to normally the next day I would be in immense amounts of pain from sweating down there. You know what I mean? Things rubbing, things getting sweaty, and you know what? That's a big time problem. That's a problem, right? It happens to all of us in Florida. But you know what? Thanks to Manscaped's Crop Preserver product, which is their ball deodorant. They say ball deodorant, but really it's kind of for everything down there. I was able to not experience any sort of what we affectionately call swamp ass down here in Florida. Had no problems, no irritation, came out smelling like a rose. Well, maybe not a rose, but everything went great. So, listen, if you, like me, normally would be in a lot of pain after a long, hot day, please get on over to manscaped.com. Throw in the promo code SUPLEX. It'll save you 20% on your entire order, and you'll get free shipping. And really, obviously you want to use the Lawnmower 3.0. Obviously, you want to get the premium boxers, which I also wore the Manscaped premium boxers for that 1-2 punch with the crop preserver. But make sure you take care of yourself. And then, at the end of the day, after you've taken care of yourself and made sure that you are not in pain, go ahead and trim that junk of yours. And now that we're done with that, I do want to take us now, Sandy, to kind of a new segment that we're going to try out here. We didn't have a specific game to talk about. We didn't have a specific genre to talk about. But, it was still a pretty busy week here in gaming. And so we're just going to just call this segment This Week in Gaming. I think it's pretty, straightforward to the point. I think the people will understand when they read the little episode description what This Week in Gaming means.
Hell yeah. I'm excited, even though we're not really getting into any kind of specific titles or, like you mentioned, a game genre, it's very important for us to discuss this week because I feel like we had some really big announcements, some surprise announcements as well. And if you're ready, let's want to go ahead and take a deep dive into this week of gaming.
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do
Dive
it.
right in.
So, of course, I'm going to be the one to bring this one up. Nintendo came out and they announced Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. First of all, I was freaking excited. Kind of. So it's like you want to be super excited because it's Zelda. Anything Zelda related, I get excited for. I don't know about you, but
Yeah.
I feel like most Zelda fans are like, oh my gosh, no matter what it is, you're going to get hyped for it. I was kind of apprehensive at first because I did play the first Hyrule Warriors. Did you play that one by any chance?
I played it briefly. I didn't get too super into it.
Me too.
I felt like there was no real story driving it. I felt
Exactly.
like it was kind of emotionless. And I don't know. Did you play the Dynasty Warriors that the game engine was built on? Did you ever play Dynasty Warriors?
No.
So I kind of knew. I played some Dynasty Warriors, and I kind of knew what I was getting into. But it was a Dynasty Warriors game with a Zelda skin. That's kind of how I felt it was.
Exactly. Just like your typical hack and slash game. You know, there's no, like you mentioned, no story to it. It's just button mashing, killing as many villains as you can for whatever prize they give you. So to me, when the first one came out, it was kind of innovative. It's like, oh, okay, we have this kind of it's all from the series, but it's Zelda. Who wouldn't want to fight with, you know, your favorite Zelda characters against your favorite Zelda villains? But like I never really got into it, like you said, just because it's very repetitive. It's the same thing over and over and over and over. Just more and more and more villains. You keep hacking and slashing your way through these levels, and to me, it doesn't feel, kind of like in wrestling. If there's no story, what's the freaking point, right? You're just doing moves. That's exactly what Hyrule Warriors was. But on September 8th, Nintendo, when they announced Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, they actually did a little plot twist here. They said, hey, this actually is a prequel to Breath of the Wild, which is set 100 years prior to the game that we have all come to know and love. Now, 100 years prior is when you see the calamity that actually happened, all the events that kind of brought us up to where Breath of the Wild takes place. So that immediately, to me, that caught me in. There's a story.
Yeah.
So now we have that same kind of mechanics and the same gameplay as the previous Hyrule Warriors, but there's a purpose and there's a rhyme, there's a reason, and we have our story. And that, to me, I'm immediately completely invested. I'm going to pre-order it. I can't wait to buy it and play it. I thought the video did a great job at introducing to us what's going to happen. So they mentioned, hey, you know, in Breath of the Wild, we know this huge event happened. We know the calamity happened, and it was very briefly mentioned, and some kind of like glimpse of what happens that we kind of get to see in Breath of the Wild. Well, they're saying, hey, you actually get to play 100 years prior when the calamity happened. We're actually going to be there with the Guardians, with Link, with Zelda, fighting, and during this enormous event that changed the history of Hyrule forever.
Yeah.
So that, to me, is just anything story related with Zelda, anything in the storyline, even though it's not a main story title, I'm completely invested in, and I can't wait to find out more.
Yeah, and like you said, it's different in that it's not a Destiny Warriors game or Dynasty Warriors game. It's straight up a Zelda game that is something they worked hand in hand with the Zelda team on from the start. And what was really cool too is, like, you get to know a little bit about the Guardians, like you said in Breath of the Wild, but now we get to actually see them in action and play as them. And that's what I'm most excited. That's what I'm most excited about. Well, I mean, they kind of were alive in Breath of the Wild too, if you get into the spiritual sense. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't know about you, but playing as Revali of the Ritos and being that bird dude that shoots arrows, I mean, that's gonna be pretty badass. I'm pretty excited about that.
My gosh.
You know,
So cool.
it's pretty, and we've gotten to, in Majora's Mask, we've gotten to play as a Goron before. We've gotten to play as a Zora before. But to play, as a Gerudo, as Rivali of the Ritos, I mean, super cool stuff. We'll see. Hyrule Warriors before had some kind of weird, kind of out of place characters that you played as from different ones. Sheik would show up, but also, we could also play as
Oh yeah.
Zelda and different things like that. So I'm sure there's going to be other playable characters that maybe don't fit the story as well. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping they stick to the more
I don't
story-driven
think that'll
characters.
happen.
I hope so. But,
I hope so too, but I really don't think so. I think they're going to, from what I got from the video from the announcement, is that they're going to stick to this storyline of, hey, 100 years prior to Breath of the Wild, this is the calamity, and the way, like you mentioned, they're working not just a team that's creating the Hyrule Warriors type of gameplay and style,
right.
but they're working very closely to the actual Zelda team to make sure that they reserve the integrity of the Breath of the Wild story, which is gameplay, your graphics, your dialogue, your entire world, but just with that game style and gameplay of Hyrule Warriors. So I really don't think that any kind of other villains that have nothing to do with Breath of the Wild are going to pop in here. If they
Yeah.
do, I feel like that'll be a huge miss. But I really think they'll do right with this game by not adding anything extra for the sake of adding anything extra.
Yeah, but now there might be some other playable characters from the story too, like maybe the King of Hyrule might be a playable character. Because obviously, even though he's passed in Breath of the Wild, he's still obviously very present in Age of Calamity. We see him in the trailer, so maybe we'll see some of that action there too. But yeah, I mean, for the way that Nintendo releases games these days and announces games, it's like, oh, by the way, here it comes next month. Like you hear
I
nothing,
love that.
absolutely nothing. We had Breath of the Wild 2 announced that it was in production. We've heard nothing since. And then Nintendo just drops a little video and says, oh, hey, by the way, here's Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, and it's a tie in. So I didn't
Yeah.
know anything about this game. I had no idea it was coming. I
I
don't
think
remember
it
reading
shocked
any
everyone.
rumors. Yeah, and not only that, but we got to see gameplay trailers, and I mean, it's coming pretty soon here. So definitely, like you said, that's the right way to kick off your week in news about gaming is talking about which is we're and we're stepping into, I think, uncharted territory here too with Zelda, and that we're now going to have 3 Zelda games tied to the same storyline as far as kind of direct sequel, prequel kind of things. I don't think they've done 3 before. We've
Um,
we've done 2 kind of, but I don't think that we've seen a direct sequel necessarily. I mean, there's theories about Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time being connected, but certainly not 3 games connected this way. So to get the main bulk of the story in Breath of the Wild, to get now a prequel, and then well, obviously we'll get Breath of the Wild too. I don't know. It's exciting stuff.
very exciting. And for anyone who would like some more details, check it out. Nintendo has put up their website for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. It is releasing on November 20th of this year, so very soon. And actually, Nintendo shared on Twitter that they will be sharing another look at the game, so hopefully with more gameplay and more backlog on the story and what that's going to look like, and that they're going to release that on September 26th. So later this month, we'll get more details on it and to get us ready for the release on November 20th. Very excited. I will definitely be picking this one up. How about you, Josh?
Oh yeah. This is probably going to be a pre-order for me. I don't pre-order a lot of games anymore unless they like have like really good like benefits. I pre-ordered the Tony Hawk re-release because you got the demo and you could play around with the demo ahead of time and things like that. But yeah, I'm definitely getting this one.
Speaking of, we talked about Tony Hawk Pro Skater, the remaster of 1 and 2 that released just last week. Last week, right? Time to
Yeah,
me is a mystery. But hey,
yeah,
Josh, you've been playing for about a week now. It was our topic for last week's episode.
yeah.
How do you like it so far? Give us an updated, an
Yeah,
update.
no, it is. It's really, really clean. It's super crisp. The graphics are amazing. The soundtracks are there. I mean, it's really it brings me back quite a bit. I got a little emotional, a little in my feelings last week talking about that time period. But no, I mean it's a fun game. It's super awesome. There's lots of different in addition to the levels having their own challenges to beat them, there's also a whole another section called challenges, and each skater has them. The normal skaters have like 21 different challenges, and I think the creative skater has 24. Just doing different gaps, and like, oh, you have to do a 40,000 point combo on this specific gap in the New York level, and you can't use grabs and no specials. And you're like, okay, well, so now instead of just like collecting skate and moving on, now you're going back through these levels to try and unlock everything. And I've completed all the challenges for the creative skater, for Leticia Buffoni, and then also for Nigel Houston. I just let my kids choose who the next skater I use is, and they just kind of sit there and kind of gawk at it. But um, Molly's favorite skater is Leticia Buffoni because A, she's a badass chick, and then two, because she has a tech deck that is Leticia Buffoni's pro model.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, we have the tech deck fingerboards here. That's a hot item in our house.
I love that. Oh, so would you say this is 100% worthy of being picked up?
Yeah, absolutely, and especially too, like at $40, it's cheaper than most AAA new releases. So at the for the budget conscious buyer, definitely. I mean, I would definitely go pick it up. Speaking of things that I'm definitely going to be picking up, I want you to tell us about we have a pretty big birthday coming up here for a video game character.
It's the 35th anniversary and birthday of Super Mario. Mario's birthday. I can't believe we're almost as old as Mario. He's only like 4 years older
Yeah,
than me.
I know. It's pretty nuts.
That's very upsetting. Very upsetting. I just turned 31, and then of course, just a month later, Mario turned 35. What is happening in this world? I feel like Mario is freaking just so many more years older than I am. But nope, we're about the same age. So I'm depressed now. Let's end this episode. I'm gonna go cry.
Well, I'd like to not continue this episode alone, but
Oh.
there is several games being released
Yeah.
for the Super Mario Brothers 35th Anniversary Edition. Now, I'll let you talk about the game package, but they are actually releasing a 35th Anniversary Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch handheld, which looks pretty badass, and it's super limited production. The handheld, in addition to Super Mario Brothers, can also play the Lost Levels, which was the real Super Mario Brothers 2 that only Japan got. We got it as the Lost Levels because, as we know, our Super Mario Brothers 2 is wildly different. But yeah, no, it is got the different little games from the Game & Watch stuff. It's $50. Be released on the 13th, and once they're gone, they're gone. So just keep an eye out for that. But they are releasing.
I didn't even hear about that one.
They kind of snuck it in under the radar because the more important thing is that we are getting a pretty awesome bundle of games that are releasing together.
We are getting the Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and that was, of course, announced for the 35th anniversary. It is arriving very soon, September 18th. Now, get this. Nintendo, being Nintendo, they are releasing this game, digital and physical copies. They're doing a limited release until the end of March 2021. Now, this has actually caused quite a bit of controversy in the gaming world and online, and critics and gamers alike, and news sources and reporters. I mean, you name it. It's been a hot topic of conversation. So, as most of you, hopefully everyone knows, digital versions of video games, there's an infinite amount of copies. You can't run out of digital software. However, Nintendo said, yeah, well, too bad. We're not going to be selling any more physical or digital copies of this game come March 2021. So that's kind of caused a little bit of a uproar in the community. Do we know why they're doing that? It's just Nintendo being Nintendo. You know how they are. They're so... I mean, I don't know. Do you know? Do you have any idea why, Josh? They would do
Yeah,
this?
so I think they did this. I'm trying to think back to what year it was. I think it was the 25th edition, anniversary edition of that they started doing this kind of like every 10 years. Um, they did a short run on that too initially, and so they, we got all the original copies, and I think they wound up putting out another one later on, but it wasn't the same like case. It wasn't the same. It's kind of like golden cartridge Zelda games, right? If you get
Oh, for
that first,
sure.
if you get that first print, you got the gold cartridge. So I think it's kind of similar there, but
But that's the thing. It's with the
Nintendo's.
physical copies, not the
Yeah, I
digital.
know. It's one of those things. I think Nintendo will always be protective of their first party games.
Mm.
Those games are always going to be $60. They're not going to drop in price. Nobody puts them on sale, unless it's Mario versus Rabbids, which that's a whole nother topic. Um, but the actual, Mario Kart right now is still $60, right? It's been out for several years. Um, Mario Kart, Super Mario Odyssey is still $60. If the Wii was still the current system, they'd be still selling Mario Galaxy for $60. They're not going to cheapen their product for their main IPs. So like Mario, Zelda, Star Fox to a certain extent, those are going to be still those are the ones they're going to protect. And so they're kind of like, hey, look at us, we're being nice to the fans. Here's this nice little bundle, but you have a limited time to buy it because otherwise we're going to go back to selling each one of these for $60 on the digital store.
Oh man, the amount of money I have spent on the same game, it is ridiculous. I have Super Mario 64 on my Wii U Virtual Console, I believe, and like many other resources. And I am so against, not against, but I like to give Nintendo my money because they have made these games. They work so hard to try new things, to really give what their audience, what their customer wants, and they put so much love into everything that they do. So I'm here to support them and give them my money. But sometimes I'm like, man, I have honestly spent so much money on just one game. Like for
Right.
Mario Kart, I bought it on my Wii U. I bought it again on my Switch. That's $120 on the same game for two different consoles. What am I doing with my life? And that
Right.
goes on for so many other games. Like as soon as they do like, oh, here's a remake of a game we just released a few years ago, I'm the idiot right there pre-ordering, like, here, take my money.
Right. I know. And it's a silly thing. It's you know, we shell out money hand over fist for Mario games. Nintendo knows it. I mean, Shigeru Miyamoto has been pimping out Mario for 35 years. He certainly understands the value of
Yeah.
Mario, and you know the simple fact that we're still buying Mario games after they made the Super Mario Brothers Super Show cartoon show that was god awful. The fact that we're still shelling out $60 every time, multiple times for the same game. I mean, they got our number. You know,
They do.
not to go
They
back to
play us like a fiddle.
not to go back to Jenny. I got your number, but they got our number. Um, but but get into this a little bit because you mentioned Super Mario 64, but there's two other titles I think some people might have missed, myself
Yes.
included. So I didn't play one of these games. Um,
Sunshine or
for whatever.
Galaxy?
I didn't play Sunshine, and
I
I
didn't play
think
Galaxy.
okay, so there you go. I can tell you that Mario Galaxy was a really fun game. It's really innovative. Um, but yeah, no. Why don't you just break down these three titles that's coming in the Super Mario 3D All Stars collection here?
So in the pack, like you have just heard, we have Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, which, like I just mentioned, I didn't get to play Super Mario Galaxy, but I know just from reading, I like to read about the games that I play. I like to read about Nintendo and kind of be in the know. I know Super Mario Galaxy is actually one of the hardcore fans for Mario's, like their favorites, because it was able to touch anyone who's played Mario in different ways because it was so innovative, so new. He's in freaking outer space, right? He's in the galaxy somewhere. It was also the introduction of Rosalina, if I'm not mistaken, and Captain Toad, which, Rosalina we have seen in other titles. We have seen her in Super Smash Brothers, and Captain Toad got his own little game out of it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. What we see in this 3 pack and this 3D All Stars is you're going to have updated graphics. You're going to have the soundtracks available to you and updated Joy-Con controllers. So it's going to have the rumble features on all the games. So lots of updates. Actually, not lots. Some updates there, I guess you can say. But what's going to be really fun is being able to play that on the Nintendo Switch and being able to take that on the go. So rather than just sitting there in your couch playing your video games, that is the beauty of the Switch. You can do that, and you can take it with you wherever you want to play.
Yeah, no, and what's great too is, if you look at the Metacritic scores, I'll bring up Metacritic just because I think it's a pretty good barometer of how good things are because it just accumulates all the different reviews. Super Mario 64, when it was released, has a Metascore critic score of 94. Sunshine has a 92, and Super Mario Galaxy actually has a 97. So these are all three of these are super popular. They're well reviewed, and definitely a title that everyone should be pretty excited, I think, to play. And definitely, like Sandy said, make sure that you only go out and get it while you can, because you don't want to be paying aftermarket for that bundle. Because that used game stores, the GameStops of the world, are definitely going to jack the prices up on those. So buy it brand new when it comes out. If that's your bag, that's what you want to get. And Sandy, I do want to touch on one more thing before we move off of this Mario 35th anniversary thing. The Mario Kart thing that's coming out for this, where you can set up the Mario Kart gates in your house and then do like a VR thing through your Switch. Did you see that at all?
Actually, I haven't seen that at all. How did I miss that?
That's right. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of like, they're sneaking this game. Obviously, the game bundle is what they want to sell most of. I think that's the thing that's the volume sale there. Where like obviously they have the limited run of the Game and Watch stuff. They're probably not going to sell that many Mario Kart Live Home Circuit is what they're calling it. It was kind of an interesting thing, and then they're going to do some other Mario themed in-game events in like Smash Brothers and Splatoon and Animal Crossing and different things like that. So they're really going all out to celebrate Mario for 35, and that's great.
Oh.
But listen, there's another game series that turns 35 next year that I hope we get the same. That I hope we get the same treatment. And of course, it's The Legend of Zelda turning 35 next year. So.
Oh my God.
I know it's Sandy, age is not, we're not escaping it.
I just can't believe it. To me, like, it felt like it was just not that long ago when I was celebrating the 25th anniversary of Zelda, because I am a sucker for all these. I'll go buy everything. I'll do all the things for it, especially when it comes to Zelda. Like Mario, that's another thing, but when it comes to Zelda, I will buy everything. I will do it all. So it's crazy for me to think that it's already the 35th. It's going to be the 35th year anniversary. That to me is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, so maybe maybe we'll get some like Skyward Sword ported to the Switch, or some maybe like Twilight Princess remade in HD. Who knows? A boy can dream.
I just want Breath of the Wild 2 already.
I know that would be the greatest 35th birthday present for Zelda, I think.
Yes.
For sure. So, moving right along with our news here, just Ubisoft has had a lot of negative press in recent times because of the kind of like Me Too type movement that's happened in the gaming industry. A lot of sexual assault allegations being kind of pushed around that company. The company decided to go ahead and go forward with their Ubisoft Forward presentation, and they did have some comments from the CEO about all the allegations and everything like that, but they opted, because of timing restrictions, and I did air quotes for those that are not watching our Skype video call, that they were not going to include that as part of the live broadcast of their kind of big video package here, but it would be attached in the on-demand version, which to me just makes it feel like they just hope that people just get past it, right?
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what it feels like.
this it's not a great look. But I just want to highlight a few of the games that we're going to see kind of coming out of it. Um, we are going to see Watch Dogs Legion, which would be, of course, the third game in the Watch Dogs series, which apparently is Sammy Callahan's favorite series because it is, of course, all about hacking. Um,
Mhm.
have you played any Watch Dogs, Sandy?
I have. I really enjoy them. I have 1 and 2. And I think the second one, if I'm not mistaken, I bought for my Wii U. So you have the integration with the gamepad where he kind of uses his tools
Huh.
to go in and hack. I freaking love the Wii U. Anyone who talks badly about the Wii U can catch me outside.
Yeah, no, I was actually I enjoyed the Wii U quite a bit too, and I no longer have mine, but I did enjoy it while I had it. I know.
Traitor.
Listen, sometimes times is tough, you know, but
Hey.
but so we got a new Watch Dogs game coming. We have a remake of the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time coming. They're not calling it a remaster; they are calling it a remake, which seems to be a distinction gaming companies want to make these days. We saw that with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, one has to wonder if Prince of Persia is going to be doing a little bit of a different take, or if it is just going to be a shot-for-shot recreation. It'll be interesting to see kind of how that goes. Um, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, of course, launched the 3D Prince games. I don't know, what's your familiarity with that series, Sandy? With Prince of
Not
Persia
very
as a
much at all.
whole. So I first started playing Prince of Persia on the Nintendo Entertainment System. The original Prince of Persia game is unbelievably hard, um, and for all the wrong reasons. It's kind of slippy controls. I don't like the game. I know there are people that are like, oh no, that's a great game. I don't think so. I think you just get your nostalgia goggles on, right? Um, but when Sands of Time came out, I was like, what? There's a Prince of Persia game, and it's rated mature, and it's like, actually, I don't think it got to be rated mature until like the second or third in the series. But it was definitely a more mature game than what we knew from Prince of Persia. Um, it had some really cool like rewinding time dynamics and different things like that. Of course, the Sands of Time. Um, it'd be interesting to see what they kind of do with the remake and why they thought that was the route to go is to go back to that one game that they had that was really successful rather than trying to make a better game, a new game to reintroduce the series. So we'll see what happens there. Um, for the fans of the arcade style beat 'em up, they are releasing a 10-year anniversary edition of Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Did you ever play the original release of the Sandy, the beat 'em up arcade style game?
I didn't. I'm actually surprised.
So
I had no idea this game even existed.
not a lot of people did, and I think that's why they think they can kind of it's kind of an indie sleeper, kind of a cult hit. The same thing with the movie, right? That movie was not very popular, but it reached kind of a cult status, and of course, Chris Evans is in it, who goes on to be Captain America, and all the different kind of cameos there. So it'll be interesting to see how well they do with that game because I think there's definitely a lot of people that missed it the first time around that will play an enhanced version of it. And I don't know about you, but I poured tons and tons and tons of quarters as a kid into arcade style beat 'em ups. Um, so I definitely enjoyed it the first time around, and I'll probably play it a second time around because it'll also be on the Switch. So it'll be easy to just kind of take around with you. But I don't know. Did you play any beat 'em up arcade games as a kid, Sandy?
Not, God, not that I can recall. Hmm.
So
No,
like
I
my
don't know.
my my go-tos, if I had my choice, right? You give me my stack of quarters, I would go and I would put one immediately on the Simpsons arcade game, and then
Oh, I did play that one.
which was phenomenal, and then also
And the Ninja Turtles.
the Ninja Turtles ones were always great, and then
Yes.
my other one was because I mean these aren't like secret ones. The other one was the X-Men game that had six joysticks, and each joystick was a different character, and that one was pretty
I
awesome
did play
too.
that.
Um, those cabinets I think are pretty hard to find in any arcades these days because they were it's said when you have that many sticks, something's gonna go wrong. But it was a lot of fun. So, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is kind of in that same vein, that same, going through the level, beating up the guys to progress and move your screen to the right as always. And then the only
It's all
other
coming
game,
back to me now.
yeah, right. Oh, God, I miss video arcades. Although, of course, now
Oh,
they have one here in Pinellas County that's they call it like an arcade museum, but like you pay like $15 and you can go play whatever. Um, in the time of coronavirus, I don't want to go and play a bunch of games that a bunch of people put their grubby hands on. So I think I
yeah.
think I'll wait a little bit to get back out there, and 'cause, like I want to
I
bring my
love that
kids and I
place.
want to like go and like play like pinball and play all kinds of stuff. But I think I might wait a little bit. Um, Anywho, one other game I want to call out real quick, because this game is getting kind of some negative attention, despite it looks kind of fun, and that's Immortals: Phoenix Rising, which is described, and I'm lifting this quote as Breath of the Wild with the serial numbers etched off. So it does seem and feel like it's a little bit of a knockoff of that Breath of the Wild style of action adventure, a little bit more open
How
world,
dare
and you're
they?
gliding. I know. This is a game that's had some really kind of strange development. At one time, it was called a different name altogether. It kind of looks like if you took Breath of the Wild and you made it about like Greek mythology, right? And then
Mhm.
you have a female protagonist that has like some magic powers, but is also just like swinging like weapons and stuff. It's kind of like, uh, in my mind, and I put these together, and maybe this is wrong. It's Zelda, God of War, and Heavenly Sword all wrapped into one. And I don't know if that's going to be a positive or a negative. But the launch trailer came out as a part of this. It's kind of a fun trailer. I mean, definitely go check it out. But I'm interested to see what kind of critical review it gets when it actually comes out. Because
Hmm.
the game journalists community called this one out from the jump when they first announced it. Which this game was first announced right after Breath of the Wild came out. So this has been a long time in development, and Ubisoft really needs to hit a home run here.
Wow. I need to watch the trailer. I'm kind of intrigued. So you're saying so it was announced or that it was in that they were making it right after Breath of the Wild or was already in production
So it was
when Breath of the Wild was?
the way I understand the timeline is that after Breath of the Wild came out, Ubisoft came the next year to E3, um, and showed off this game, and everyone's kind of
Mm.
like, yeah, the exact quote here, taken from The Verge's preview of the game, was Nintendo's instant classic with the serial numbers filed off. So it does look, the map kind of looks similar. It's
Oh.
physics-based puzzles. It does feel very Breath of the Wild-ish. Um, Even like so, the original name of it, like I said, it was announced as a game called Gods and Monsters. It's eventually changed. It's now called Immortals: Phoenix Rising. But I mean, check out the trailer. I mean, it looks interesting. You know, Ubisoft needs something. But I will say that they do have a sale going on right now as like a part of their like big show. You can go and get some pretty cheap games. If you're into like Rainbow Six Siege, like that game's like $8. Um, so there might be some stuff that's fun to go back and play. Um, and then I want to touch real quick the Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That game is going to be releasing sooner than expected, which is very strange in this coronavirus time because every other game has gotten pushed back. And so Assassin's Creed Valhalla, we've learned, is not going to be released on November 17th. Instead, it's going to be released on November 10th. Now you say, okay, well, why is that a big deal? It's only a week's difference. Josh, why are you even talking about that? I think it's because it segues nicely into the release of the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, which come out on the same day. And so Assassin's Creed is now effectively a launch title for the new system. And so with that, Sandy, we did get the news of the Xbox Series X and the Series S, which I hadn't heard too much about the Series S, coming out and giving us prices that we're going to now know how much money we're going to be spending on these consoles.
Absolutely. No, I remember hearing the rumblings and the leaks about the Xbox Series S. So just like what we had for, I believe, wasn't it the 360 that had the one model?
Yes, they had like the arcade edition, I think they called it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that didn't
That's what it
have
was.
that had the really small hard drive. You really couldn't store anything on it. It was more so a home media box to like play DVDs and things like that.
Exactly. So this one, from what I understand, is essentially the same thing. It's all going to be digital software. You can't do your hardware just on there. And the big difference here, though, between the Series S and the Series X is the 4K capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, it seems like a pretty solid box there, especially for the price point. They have it set at $299, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
I don't have my notes up right now, but that seems like a pretty good deal, especially with the power that it's packing. You know, usually for these kind of like entry level models, or models where it's like, okay, here's for gamers who are just downloading their digital games to play. It's gonna be no real hardcore gamer, I guess, in a way. No 4K playing, no 4K gaming. I mean, and at the price point, it's a good console, and I think it's not really missing a whole lot from the Series X.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those things where like I think you touched on it perfectly, is if you are a serious hardcore gamer that wants the 4K UHD output at 60 frames per second, you're going to have to get the Series X, right? There's just no ifs, ands, or buts. But what we found, especially this year during the pandemic, there's a lot more people that casually want to get into games, and Nintendo's made that very accessible. You still have trouble finding Switches at stores because of that accessibility. And I think it's wise of Microsoft to put out a Series S, which, it has half the size hard drive on it. But I don't think 4K has taken off the way that like a lot of the industry thought it would in the home, just simply because most people cannot tell a difference that is that noticeable between a 4K TV and a standard TV. And a lot of that has to do with the media and the output of the device that you're plugging it into. And people don't really understand that. And so because of that, I think it does create this market for something less than 4K and more casual. And like you said, it is $299 for the Series S and $499 for the Series X. $500 is a lot of cheddar to put down on a game system, and then to have to turn around and buy games for it. And $300 is nothing to sniff at either, right? I mean, that's plain and simple. But where Microsoft, I think, and we haven't seen the PlayStation 5 price yet, but I expect it to be similar to this. But the difference is that Microsoft has kind of taken their whole mindset of, okay, like I used to sell computers at a retail store, and we had to offer Microsoft Office with every computer because it didn't come with it, and you had to buy this box software, right? It was $120 for the Home and Student Edition. If you wanted Microsoft Word and Excel, everything that you normally think that you can just do, right? You had to shell out $120, but that was a one-time fee that Microsoft collected from you. Now, you want to buy Microsoft Office, you can pay monthly for it, and they just collect it from you forever. And that's what Microsoft wants. And so that's why like things like Game Pass and things like that are integral to why they're willing to give you a console at $299 also. But then also make the $499 price tag more affordable, because they are also doing a monthly payment plan for these systems, which I think is pretty smart.
Absolutely, Josh.
And
I think that we have a difference there with the Xbox All Access too, where actually you get a better deal by paying it on the Xbox Series X S compared to the Xbox Series X.
Right.
So just kind of like you mentioned, it's gonna really just depend on the gamer, and the two different consoles are aimed exactly at the right audience. We have the hardcore gamers who resolution is key, resolution is everything, and they will pay the extra $200 to have that processing speed and the resolution. And where you have the more casual gamer who says, hey, $300 is exactly where I want to be at. 4K, you know what? I'm actually surprised too that 4K didn't really take off at the level that I think it should have, especially with TV pricing going down so much. Remember when the first 4K TVs came out, there were upwards of $5,000, $10,000 for
Oh
a
yeah.
very small 4K TV, and now you can get yourself a 4K TV for on sale for like good 200, $300. It's nothing compared to how it used to be. So it's
Nothing.
really nothing. It's really, I mean, I personally don't have a 4K TV. My regular HD TV is still kicking. It's still doing good. I really can't tell that much of a difference. So to me, 4K, not really that big of a deal. But it's very accessible. So I do understand how the people in the industry are like, why aren't people buying more 4K stuff? It should be everywhere by now. But it's just not. It's really been a slow trek when it comes to that transition.
Yeah, and to that point, I mean, I have a 4K TV in my living room, and it's because I got one at a place that you and I both used to work at that had, bad box deals and different things like that. Um, but every other TV in my house, two of the three don't even do 1080p. Um, so I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're enjoying what you're watching or what you're doing, that's the important part. But they want to make that option available. Like I used to work in digital signage some, and like there are companies out there being like, look at our, at trade shows, we have a great 8K display, and then someone the next year or the next trade show came with a 12K display. Sandy, who needs that? Right?
Nobody.
Nobody. I was like, I looked at, the picture they were showing on like this 12K screen. I'm like, that looks better than real life. Okay. Like, it really
It's
does.
too good.
It's too good. Just stop that. Whatever that is, just knock it off. Right. So, it's a weird kind of thing there. Um, but yeah, so I mean, if you look at though the pricing breakdown, right? You can either pay the $500 one time or the $300 one time. And I mentioned they're doing this on a monthly basis too. Now, where the value comes in, where they get you hooked on the monthly subscriptions, like Game Pass and All Access and different things like that. So if you do the Xbox Series X as an X-ray, I'm sure that my X's and S's are starting to sound similar as we get later in the recording. The Series X is $35 a month and includes all those different subscription fees for 2 years, which comes out to $840. If you do the Series S versus $25 a month for 2 years with all those things, that's $600. So right off the bat, Xbox is getting money out of you, right? If they can get you to do the monthly thing. And they want you to do the monthly thing because those games that they're releasing on their Game Pass and different things, a lot of them are Microsoft Studios. A lot of ones are ones that they already own. They don't really care. And if they can get you to do Game Pass, then they can also get you to play on PC, and then also Xbox One. So everything Xbox One, Xbox Series X/S, and PC will have the same game library. And they don't really care about the hardware at that point. They just want you to pay for the software. And so, they're going to get an extra $340 out of you on the Series X, or they're going to double their money on the sale, getting it out of you the Series S when you do that $25 a month plan. So, definitely makes it more attainable for someone in the short run. But if you're someone that's just going to buy an Xbox and get maybe 2 games, you're going to pay more in the end of the day doing the monthly thing than you would if you just bought the Xbox and those 2 games. But Xbox Game Pass, from what I hear, is the best deal in the industry because you do get certain games like the new Halo game is going to be on Game Pass day one with the launch of the system. So there's a lot of perks to that, and like I said, Microsoft, they just want to keep your money coming in monthly. They don't want you to shut that off. Then you'll think, oh, it's only $10. What do if I play a game here, a game there, what's $10, right? It's better than paying 60. And then that's how they keep you, subscribed and, giving them $120 a year until you die. So,
That's
you
how they
know,
get us.
that's how they get you. You know, what are you gonna do? They got you by the joysticks.
Oh my God, they got us. They got us
But
good.
yeah, they do. But I don't know. I mean, for me, I got two kids. Doing a monthly payment plan, I think, is a smart play to get people with kids or limited incomes, especially during the pandemic. Some people have taken loss of income or lost a job, making something that's more accessible for people to say, okay, I can afford $25 a month more than I can afford $300 in one shot. So,
Mhm.
Microsoft's been at this game a long time. They know what they're doing. But with that said, I might actually at launch get an Xbox, despite the fact that
Ooh.
listeners of this podcast will know that I only have a PlayStation 4 right now. So I have Nintendo too. I don't consider the Switch in competition with these. I consider it different, but I might have to switch allegiances you know until like the next Final Fantasy 7 game comes out, and then I will have to buy a PS5. Um, but
No, you don't, Josh. Screw Sony.
I don't know if I can do the podcast with you anymore, Sandy. No, I'm
We've
kidding.
talked about this. Those, those
No, I'm
people.
kidding. I know. No, no. Console wars, it's not a thing. Don't let companies ruin friendships. That's my PSA for the week.
Fair enough.
But so I think that pretty much covers all the news we wanted to touch in the video game world. Sandy, you got anything else in the world of video games?
In the world of video games, I just want to do a quick shout out to Humble Bundle. I don't know if you guys have heard of it before. I absolutely love it. You go to humblebundle.com. They have thousands of games available with great discounts, lots of them on sale. Right now, they are actually doing the end of summer sale for a few more days. I think the last day is going to be September 14th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that gives you a couple of days once you hear this podcast to check them out. If you're not familiar with Humble Bundle, they are a store where you can find great deals on thousands of video games playable on Steam, Windows, Mac. Not only that, but every purchase that you make through them supports a charity with a database of over 20,000 of them. So I absolutely love it. I've been able to get sometimes Nintendo will actually do a little indie Humble Bundle deal where you can pay as much as you want, as much as you can to support all these indie developers. And I think that's such a cool idea. When Nintendo gets in there, I am in. And of course, there's every single game developer, indie or not. Ubisoft is actually sponsoring their sale on there as well. So you can pay with PayPal, you can support charity, and you can get your game on. So definitely check them out. Humblebundle.com.
That's awesome. And I've bought Humble Bundles in the past, and they oftentimes put pretty good games in there too.
Yeah.
You'll get some occasional AAA releases in there too, mixed in with the indie games. So definitely make sure you subscribe to their newsletter because they'll send you what's going on each time. So,
Very cool.
Sandy, before we sign off, it's time to talk about one last match where we go and we say, hey, listen, go check this out. We talked about Impact, we talked about video games, but outside of those two things, here's some wrestling that you should go and watch.
So I love how we keep calling it our one last match, one more match. And I've just been doing shows. That's just the rebel
Okay,
in me, I
I mean,
guess.
it could be one more show, but I stick to the one match, you stick to the one show, but
I
I think it works for us, Sandy.
It does. So mine for this week is going to be Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling's Alex Perry tribute show. Alex Perry is actually one of our a fellow trainee at the Lethal Academy here in Tampa Bay. He unfortunately passed away. I believe, gosh, when was this already? Like a year, 2 years ago? Can't exactly call the date. Time, like I mentioned earlier, is a mystery to me. But they did an awesome tribute show where lots of our Tampa Bay Pro talent was able to kind of do this special show to say goodbye to Alex, and it was a very touching show. I unfortunately wasn't able to be there in person, but now I'm able to check out the entire show on fight.tv. So guys, check it out if you get a chance. You get to see lots of incredible talent on there coming from the Tampa Bay Pro Wrestling and Lethal Academy. Oh my gosh, my brain just stopped working. I believe Duke Strike's on there. We have Hunter Law. These are names that we've kind of mentioned in the past. They're really great guys known here locally. And of course, you've seen Snoop Strikes, known as Coto Brazil in MLW, and Troy Hollywood in the independent scene, same with Hunter Law, and lots of other up and coming students from the Lethal Academy. So check that out. It's available on fight.tv. And Josh, what's your one last match?
Well, my one last match is a one last match, and it is actually, like I mentioned earlier, I was in person in the Daily's place for All Out, and I do want to call out the match between Hikaru Shida and Thunder Rosa, both because they're incredible talents. They had an incredible match, and also they really overcame a really, really difficult situation to step into, being the match that followed Matt Hardy's injury. Um, I think I've mentioned on this podcast before, maybe I haven't, but the Hardy Boys were the tag team that like I grew up watching, right? Like I've talked about I loved Rey Mysterio. He was my solo guy. Like if it was a singles match, Rey Mysterio all the way. But as far as tag teams go, it was the Hardy Boys. Team Extreme had a massive crush on Lita. We won't dive into that too much. Um,
I mean, same.
who didn't, right? Um, but to watch Sammy Guevara tackle Matt Hardy off the scissor lift, and to see the impact, obviously I'll say live. It wasn't really necessarily live. They showed it because we were watching on a screen because it was happening behind us in the concourse of Daly's place. But to hear the thud of the back of Matt Hardy's head, the energy in the building went to zero. Nobody, and then of course when they continued wrestling, it was really, really hard to watch, and it really, really was like watching your childhood hero. Like I thought he died. Like he was just laying there motionless, and I was like, oh shit! Like Matt Hardy's done. Like he can't. Like there's no way they're gonna continue this. And then they did. I was like, no, you could just make up some stupid kayfabe reason if you didn't want him to retire for real. Like, this is professional wrestling. Who gives a shit? Stop the match. And there's been plenty of talk about that, but Shida and Rosa had to follow that with, like I said, zero energy in the building. People were more concerned with how Matt Hardy was doing. Obviously, his wife got on Twitter and was pretty vocal about how terrible it was that they continued the match, and so everyone's trying to get updates, and Brian Alvarez is tweeting that he's fine, and this and that, and I think people kind of started to kind of come out of that, that malaise of oh wait, we're at a wrestling show, and these women are giving it all they got, and so I mean, some people called it their match of the night from the pay-per-view. I don't think that's far off from being the truth, if it's not the truth. They did a hell of a job. Both women, like I said, are extreme talents. I think Thunder Rosa is someone, if you haven't seen a lot of her, definitely go back and find some of her matches. She has some really good stuff in NWA Power, which is on YouTube, free to watch, easy to find. And of course, I mean, Hikaru Shida is top notch. So really bang up job by both of those women, overcoming an extremely, extremely hard obstacle that they had no control over. So shout out to them.
Absolutely. Girl power.
So with that, I want to remind you guys, of course, that if you head over to Pro Wrestling Tees, we do have a shirt, as well as some of the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We are a part of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, and you can find other shows on all your podcast apps. Shows like One Nation Radio, shows like the Keeping It Strong Style, shows like the new one, Grave Consequences, or a Great Match Generator. Definitely check those out. And I'll go ahead and say next week we will have Rich Latta filling in, covering for a week here from One Nation Radio. We're excited to have him. He does do our theme music, our intro and our outro. So we definitely want to put him over as always for that. Once again, I want to say head on over to manscaped.com. Use the promo code SUPLEX to save 20% and get free shipping. And I'll throw it to you, Sandy, if you want to run down the social media real quick.
social media. You can follow us on Twitter, interact with us. We'd love to hear suggestions of the show, what you like, what you didn't like. Remember, try to keep it positive, like we tried to. No, just
Right.
kidding. We'll get all the feedback. But definitely check us out. My personal Twitter handle is at Sailor Zelda. Of course, the 8-Bit Suplex one is at 8-Bit Suplex. We have Josh. Josh, yours was Laughlin Josh,
Yeah,
right? You took
Laughlin
the Mac out.
_ Josh. Yep. Well, yeah.
There
But
you go.
like I mentioned before on the show, I am horrible at social media outside of Facebook. So
Hey, I'm pretty bad too. I need to get my follower count up. So help us out. And yeah, definitely check us out. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to our podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please leave us a 5-star review and let us know. Also, thank you. I want to thank everyone so much for the support that we've received, for the awesome feedback that we've received. We appreciate you so much. I'm going to miss you so much for next week. I think I'm going to be out actually a couple of weeks. I'm so sorry, but I will return. There's some things that are happening, things are transpiring, and I will be away, but I cannot wait to be back. And Josh will be accompanied by some very good hands in Rich. He's awesome, and you'll see our guest for the following week as well.
yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna miss you, Sandy. Definitely, we can't replace you. So it's just a temporary thing. She promised she promises it's temporary.
I promise.
So but if it turned into a permanent thing, it would be okay, Sandy, because you'd be on to bigger and better things. But sincerely, thank you all for listening. And that's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Sandy, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye, Josh.
Bye.